Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first episode of An Inside Look. I am your host, Mike Drew, and I am proud to be joined this afternoon by the COO and founder of the Bloomery Plantation Distillery, Linda Losey is here. Linda,
Hi,
nice of
thanks
you
for
to
having
be
me.
here. So what we want to do with this show is we want to give people who don't usually have a chance to get into the spotlight an opportunity to sort of express themselves and let everybody else get an inside look into their stories. And so I have a little bit about your story in front of me here, but I think it's better coming from you. So let's just give the viewers out there a little bit of a background into what made Linda Losey as we sit here in 2015. I know it's a deep question, but
Very deep, actually, if given my story. Back in 2004, my youngest son, Sam, was walking across a field carrying some garbage cans, and a truck with a trailer hauling a 5-ton John Deere tractor ran over him and crushed him. And I lost my youngest son, Sam. He was my muse. He was my writing partner. He was a creative Renaissance man, poet, published poet, and just this amazing, amazing kid. And 3 months prior to his death, he said, "Mom, I want to ride across America on a horse." And I said, "Sam," I said, "someday, honey, we will." I had 4 kids, and they're all in school at the time. And I was just like, we can't right now, but we will. I promise you, we will." And he said, "Mom, I want to do it. I want to do it right now." And I said, "Sam, we can't." I said, "But I'll show you how to plot your route." So he plotted from Maryland to West Virginia to Ohio before he passed away. And I mean, you talk about heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching, lose yourself in sorrow-wrenching. Any parent out there who has ever lost a child or even thinks about it, it is above and beyond all of that heartache that you think it would be. I was devastated, devastated. 8 months after he passed away, I got a call from a company, a feed company down in Kentucky, Macaulay Feed Company, and they said, "Hello, is Sam Losey there?" And I said, "I'm sorry." I said, "He's not. May I ask who's calling? He's no longer with us." And dead silence on the other side. And they said, "Well, he was so and so, and he received a letter and wanted to sponsor Sam's journey across America on a horse." And I said, "Wow, I didn't know he had done that he had written to you." And they said, "Yeah, we received it 8 months ago. We've been mulling it over and how to sponsor his journey."
wow.
And they said, "Would you like to go?" And I said, "No." Yes, yes, I would. In his honor, I would. So they were my feed sponsor, the only sponsor I had across America as I rode my horses. I shipped them out to California, and actually it was probably one of the smartest things I had done is shipping them out to California. We live in Baltimore, and had I gone 60 miles outside of Baltimore, I would never have made it. I would have called my girlfriends up and said, "Come get me."
This is it, yeah.
Yeah, this is it, totally it. But I shipped them out to California and had to head east to get home. And it was hard. It was hard. Felt invincible, though. What more? What more could God bring on to me? I lost my child, and who are you to do that to me? It's not
Right,
that I felt sorry for myself. I just felt, bring it on.
right.
And little did I know that more would happen. I traveled through an earthquake, Hurricane Katrina, snow, rain, sleet. Oh, it was awful. And the first 2 months I sort of rode in silence and trying to heal in the desert and coming to terms and grips with where my life had taken me. And it was very much a healing process. And by the time I got to the Navajos in New Mexico and, sleeping with the Navajos and just really getting to know them was a huge part of my healing journey. And by the time I got to Missouri, I was halfway across the country and just kept looking forward. When I returned home, probably about a month or two before I made it home, when I crossed from West Virginia into Maryland, again following the route that Sammy had planned, which was amazing in and of itself.
Yeah.
My eldest son, Eric, met me, and he gave me warm gloves and a tent, and he was 18 years old, and just so looking forward to my return. And he gave me a bracelet, and it was the last gift that he ever gave me. And within a year, he also passed away from tragic circumstances. And, talk about crawling and being down, and just, half your heart is ripped out. And but I had to rise. I had to get back up because I still
Right.
had my two surviving children, and it was as hard as you can imagine and all that. It was just awful. But life goes on, and you crawl and you try to work your way out of that black hole. And eventually, I remarried. My ex-husband, and I had already we were divorced at the time of the tragedies, but we remained good friends and got ourselves through it, for our family. And I met my current husband, Tom, and he's just a joy in my life. And his great aunt Mary McKillop from Australia. Tom is U.S. and Australian citizenship. And he got the invitation in 2010 to go to the Vatican to see the canonization of his great-aunt Mary McKillop's canonization as Australia's first saint. And it was a turning point in our lives in that we were experiencing it was just so overjoyed just being there, and just really it was just spiritual in and of itself. I mean, the Navajos were spiritual, and being in St. Peter's Square, just watching this was. And we experienced limoncello for the first time, and
And that led to something, did it not?
it so led to something, and that's completely turned my life around yet again in a much more positive way, as far as from going from death to life and
Right.
learning to love and live and laugh again.
Yeah, and so the tasting of limoncello, as you said, or as we alluded to, led to this business that you've developed, the distillery.
Yes.
And if you want to just say a few things about that, let people know where this next passion in your life took you exactly.
It was kind of crazy in and of itself, and well, obviously, if you ride a horse across America, you're not a conventional conventional person, but it's all a journey for me. And when we were over in Italy, we couldn't speak any Italian, and this restaurant that we were at, they could not speak any English, and
There's a dilemma right there.
there's a very big
Yeah.
dilemma, and they had this menu, and I was trying to navigate the menu, and the waiter, he was perplexed a little bit, and finally he's like, and I'm like, pork. He's like, see. so we sort of started to get to know one another, and I had tasted limoncello, but it was not a very good quality limoncello earlier on in the trip.
Yeah.
And they said limoncello, and I said no. And they said no, the grandma zest. And so finally, like after 2 bottles of wine, and we said, yeah, bring out the limoncello, and it was to die for. It really was. It was great. And we came home with 2 bottles of limoncello. And when we got home and we went through like a bottle and a half, and I only had this much left. Yeah, that was a problem.
There's a sign right there.
So we started buying bottles off the shelves of America, and we bought 22 bottles of limoncello throughout the course of a couple of weeks, trying to get that same flavor profile.
Yeah.
And just couldn't find it. So I started making it, and I invited my ex-husband, who I mentioned, Rob, over along with his girlfriend, and I said, you want to try some shots? And they said, sure. So we had 23 shots of limoncello sitting on the counter, and it was a blind taste test, and they picked ours, and then that just kept happening, with family, friends. And I said to my husband and Tom, I said, I think we have something here. So he's a civil engineer, and he was headed down to a conference in Florida, and I texted him. I said, I'm going to meet the Craigslist killer. And he's like, where are you going and what are you doing? I said, don't worry. I said, if I like it, you're in trouble. If I don't, it's not a problem. Right. But it was this old abandoned log cabin in the woods in West Virginia, and I found it on Craigslist. And I went out there with a girlfriend, and we looked at it, and I knew I had this vision to turn this into a business, and it's now called, one of the happiest places on earth. And we have 17 employees and have won 24 international medals.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're doing very well.
We are. It's just for me, it's a place to put my creative energy in, and to have a family once again, and like I said before, to learn to laugh and love and live again.
So I think one of the things we learned here, kids, is if you can't communicate with somebody, when in doubt, snort. Right? That's
That
let's
works.
Yep, get that right out there because I know somebody's thinking that. So this, we're not the only ones. So this distillery, which you started up from scratch, and the death of two of your children, you're somebody who goes without saying you faced a lot of adversity in your life. So in terms of overcoming that adversity, is there? Oftentimes we hear people in formats like this say they have some sort of secret formula.
Oh, wow.
Is there a secret formula for you to overcoming adversity, or what is it you think? What personal qualities, anything that got you through those tough time periods into an area where you could grow again as a person?
Well, one of the things that I learned in traveling across America is I had to do it one step at a time. It was, according to my horse Rocky, it was 1,783 steps in a mile. And we traveled 4,032 miles across America, and that was like 7,189,056 steps is what it took us to get across America.
A ways.
Oh, just a little. And 6 months, 29 days, 1 hour, and 4 minutes, but I wasn't counting.
No, of course not.
So I learned that I needed to get up every day, and I had my two horses with me and nobody else, and they were relying on me. And I knew I needed to just travel 18 miles a day. 18 miles a day across America. There's a town every 18 miles. And I just knew I needed to get to the next point. And so as long as I got up and made a movement toward that next goal, I knew that I could get there. And that's sort of what it takes to get out of sort of that adversity or out of your own head and feeling sorry for yourself. And I liken it to the 3 C's, where it's
Right.
compassion and commitment and courage. And it takes all 3 to get through them. For me, compassion, if you're in your own head and you're drowning in sorrow and you can't look around you, and believe me, it's difficult to do that, but to find empathy for your fellow man and to know that somebody else may be worse off than you are. You know, when I was riding across America, I met somebody who had lost 4 children, and I thought 2 was hard. I couldn't even imagine losing 4 children. And so it just goes to show you that there's always somebody who is suffering in life, and if you can turn your own sorrow and give, and that's that compassion that you need. And then the commitment. It's very difficult to be committed to get through your own grief and your own sorrow and your own tragedy. It's hard to look outside of that, but you have to be committed every day. And for me, riding across America, I had to be committed to taking that step every day to get moving and get going. And that commitment part of it is when you're in grief and you're going through that, is to just be committed to getting up in the morning and taking that one step and then go back to bed. It's okay. And you can't be on anybody else's timeline when you're trying to do it. You have to get through it on your own timeline. Everybody grieves differently. Everybody handles it differently. Because of that, you have to be committed to, perhaps it's your creativity, perhaps you're an artist or a cook or a musician, and you just want to pull out your guitar, but you don't have the stamina to write a song or to paint a painting. Just pull it out and look at it and put it back. Just be committed to doing that every day. And once you start doing that, then you can get back into your creativity or whatever it is that drives your passion, and you become committed again to something in life. And then the 3rd C is courage. You have to have courage to get through it. You have to face your fears, you have to get through it. And it takes a lot of courage to go through something so heartfelt and heart-wrenching.
See, it's really interesting to me that you say that things like this have to be done on your own schedule, on your own timetable, because this may be more of a commentary, but whatever. We live in an age where, the smartphone Google age, where everybody pulls out Google and just says how to blank, right? I mean, we have the obesity problem in this country where everybody has a diet plan. They follow somebody else's diet plan, or they want to figure out how they can work out. They follow somebody else's workout plan. But if it's more authentic and you have a better shot of it actually happening. I think this is what you're saying.
Sure.
If it comes from your own accord. And with something like this, obviously, riding 4,000 miles on horseback after losing 2 children, that's much different than going on a diet or something like that. But the resiliency really comes from
Within.
here. is what you're saying, I think.
Absolutely, from within. And if anybody who suffers a loss in life, you usually have a support system around you, and you rely on that support system to get you through it. But eventually they return to their lives, they return to whatever it is that they were doing prior to your loss. And you have to get through it yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're saying, is
Yeah.
that you have to figure it out. And it's not easy, but once you start that commitment and taking those steps, and as they leave, you're learning to heal yourself and to get through it. And it's not that you have to do it yourself, you have to start with yourself in
Right.
order to make those steps.
That's where it originates.
Absolutely.
So shift gears a little bit. So your company, your distillery. Obviously, as we've alluded to, you started it from the ground up, and this has been running
4 years now.
4 years now. So, all right, so you're a little bit past that initial growth stage. So if I were to ask you, I don't know if you want to look 5 years down the road, a couple years down the road, where do you see things going?
I would hope that we continue to grow. We stay true to ourselves as a company and what our mission is, and you know, we are a small farm, and we grow lemons, we grow raspberries, we grow black walnuts and pumpkins, and it's all natural. So we put 190 proof shine in there, pure cane sugar, and then mountain water, and whatever the fruit, root, or nut is that we grow or source from other small American farms. So I'd like to be able to, as we grow, because certainly we're growing, and I'd like to be able to stay true to that and support small American farms that hold the same values that we do, and go national. Right now we're regional, but I'd love to be national and international. I want to be, well, we are currently a small American brand that is making waves, and I'd like to see that continue.
And I know you've already touched on this too, but just to go back on it to a minute, because I think it's so fascinating, the fact that you're in business here with your ex-husband as well as your current husband. I mean, how does that work, right? Somebody out there is looking at this saying, what did I just hear? So just to get you to touch on this again, because this is remarkable. You don't see this happen.
Usually I say, hi, I'm Linda Losey,
Yeah.
and this is my husband, Tom Kiefer, and this is my ex-husband, Rob Losey, and together we are Bloomery Sweetshine. And we are. And then his girlfriend, Rita, is also one of our fun tenders. She's been in our family since the get-go. And, you know, it takes, looking back on it, it takes so much strength to get through what Rob and I did in overcoming the loss of our boys.
Sure.
And we've been best friends for 30 years. We weren't a good marriage, we weren't a good fit that way, but we've been a good fit as partners and as friends. And so he's got wonderful strengths, Tom has wonderful strengths, and I have wonderful strengths. And so together we sort of make this hodgepodge of a company work, and it's very quirky and it's fun, and it's home for both Rob and me, and my husband Tom. I mean, it's just a family of people, and I hope that continues, that we're always able to know our employees and create a great product.
Yeah, that's great. I just think that's a fantastic element of the story. So let's talk about your book here. Okay, let's talk about which is called The Great God Hunt. Okay, and I'm sure this was another outlet for you to sort of express some of these emotions, some of these things that got you through the tough, adverse period in your life. So your inspiration for writing this book, let's start there.
Actually, it went back to 1994 when my dad died. He, from the time of diagnosis, and it was Labor Day weekend, to November 5th, he died. So it's 2 months from time of diagnosis to his death. And in 6 weeks' time, he lost his sight, he lost his voice, he lost, you know, everything that we knew about him. He just became a shell of a man. And, you know, I kept telling him, I was very close to my dad, and I kept telling him, Dad, you know, when you cross over, somehow you've got to let us know that, you know, there's something more. And he would smile as best as he could, but there wasn't much there. And the night that he passed away, about 6 hours into knowing that he was really going and his breathing was shallower, and my mom and I were encouraging to cross over and to go to the light, he leaned up and he looked up and he said, I see the light, and goodbye. And he passed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had so many questions then at that time as to where he was and what was going. And I just started asking, and I have no idea where the answers came from. I don't know if it came from the universe. I don't know if it came from God. I don't know if it came from within. But I just started journaling and writing everything down that happened. And I mean, I had a manuscript of about this thick of just writing and answers to all of these questions that I had and what it was like on the other side that I was hearing from my father. And I just, like I said, started writing. And then I set it aside and gathered dust on the shelf. And
So not all at once, by any means.
that was 3 months.
Okay.
And then I just set it aside. And that was in 1995. And then when Sammy passed, during that 8-month time frame prior to my leaving on my journey, the horse journey, I pulled it off and started rereading it and, you know, trying to apply it to Sam's death, and knowing that he was in a much better place from where I thought he might be after reading this, and it just really struck home for me. And I started making it into a book, so it went from like this manuscript like this down to 100 and some pages. And after I got home, I turned it into a publisher, and then Eric died, my eldest son,
Right.
and they sent it back to me, and they said, you have to incorporate Eric's death in the ending. So I started again and rewrote the ending with Eric, and sent it off, and it went to #1 on Amazon in Death and Grief, and in no time, like in 12 hours, and
Wow.
it amazed me. And I know it's touched people, and it's certainly I did it for me. I did it because I wanted to capture what happened with my dad's death and my boy's death, and heal. It was part of that creative muse that I was talking about earlier, that you just have to start doing something. And little did I know it was going to do something, and it did, and it still touches people's lives, you know, years later. And so it's just, for me, it's just a chronicle of the journey, not the horse journey, but on healing.
Right.
You know, it's called The Great God Hunt, and certainly my journey has been in trying to find meaning to their deaths.
I'm interested too from an author's perspective now, since you can consider this. Like anything, you know, most people say, well, the first one's the toughest, right? And do you agree with that statement? I mean, in terms of when you look back at the entire process, I know you said you wrote for 3 months, stashed it away, then had to rewrite some more. Writing the first book, how would you describe the experience from that realm?
It was healing. For me, it was very healing, because I was able to put down all that I heard in my head and all that I was feeling, and you know, and just journal the moment, so I could go back and I can reread it. And it's funny that you should say that, because I'm so eager to write about my horse journey across America, because that was just, in and of itself, was just an amazing journey. And I have all my journals that on the side of the road, as I was sitting there doing that.
You're leading me in. I was going to say, are there plans for another book at some point in the future?
There are. There
Yeah.
is. So I'm trying to do that, but now it's finding the time.
Right.
Back then I had some time.
Yeah.
Now I don't have the time.
Yeah.
But I just want to sit down and take those journals and just write. And thankfully I wrote everything I was feeling at the time when I was, sitting under a tree wondering where, I was going to end up that night, or
Yeah.
where I was going to find a meal, or what I was going to do. But yeah, so it's all there. I just have to now convert it into a book.
That's great, and wish you all the success with that. And we only have a few minutes left, so this is sort of a wide-ranging final topic for us, so we'll see what we get. So when we talk about success, whether it be in the business world from a practical sense, or in life, recovering from adverse situations, showing resiliency, all the things we've been talking about in this conversation, what are Linda Losey's personal keys to success, both in the business world and in the personal world? So let's start on the business side of it, with what you've done in the distillery. Your keys to running a successful business.
You have to trust. You have to trust the process, and you have to let it unfold. And I think that applies to both sides there. But for me, in the business side of it, surrounding yourself with really good people and trusting that you're teaching them well. I'm definitely the leader of the distillery, and my team looks to me to lead. And I trust that they have the passion and creativity and own this business as much as we do, because we allow that to sort of be, and we trust them with it, and they're so passionate about it, and they own it as much as we do in that sense, and they just want to see it succeed. So I think that's a huge part of it, is just trusting that you're smart enough to surround yourself with good people.
Yep.
And to let them to run with it. And I think that's how you hit a home run, is to create that environment where success can blossom. And I think that's true in any area of your life, is just trusting the process and letting it unfold.
So you'd say that also in terms of personal success,
Yeah.
apart from the business world and the numbers and all that stuff and the finances.
I do, and I think perseverance is huge with that. You have to persevere. I used to look at life as if it was a challenge, and I just needed to get through the challenge, and then life would be better. And that's true. You get through the challenge, life is better, but that's just the pit stop. There's always going to be another challenge in front of you, and as long as you take that pit stop to sort of re-energize and get through to face that next challenge, and you keep going. And so I think it takes perseverance and to take those steps and to trust the process as it unfolds.
Well, your story is certainly, I think, a little bit surreal and almost unbelievable at certain points that some of this stuff happened in the way it did. It's been a pleasure to sit here and talk to you about it. It's been a great time. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Same to all of you out there. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Thanks for watching the first episode of An Inside Look. We'll see you again soon.